In a memory, someone used to think that his life was like a nightmare from which he could not wake up. That he fought with all his strength, but the more he struggled, the more he sank, immediately revealing a couple kissing passionately. And the young man in question confesses that it was like that until she appeared. While they kissed, the young man mentally asked her to wait for him. He pulled her away a little and asked if she would allow him, calling her Jian while admiring her beauty. He asked her not to treat him like a child, adding that he was actually much more ambitious than she thought. Those words made the woman think for a moment, and, with a slight movement, she removed the fabric she was wearing, letting it slide down her body until it fell to the floor, which left the young man surprised by what he saw. Then Jian approached him and asked what was wrong now since he had a vacant look. She also questioned whether he was afraid. The young man, for his part, thought that she was like a light that had appeared in the depths, believing she was his salvation. It was then that he took her hand and mentioned that he didn't even have time to love her enough, beginning to climb the intimacy of every touch between them. But before that happened, that same young man was near a river, playing with his lighter, reflecting on life and revealing that he had some fight wounds. Then he took out his cell phone to check the time, thought it was already late, and wondered if buses were still running. However, he didn't give it importance and questioned what sense it made to go back home at that moment. He reflected that from the beginning until now he had always been alone, like a clown. He remembered a moment at school where a girl was screaming to be released. The student who was holding her let go and replied that it was fine, but immediately approached her and asked her not to ignore him, calling her Jen Jen. He began to extend his hand toward her and asked her not to be afraid, promising that this time he would be gentle. But the girl brushed his hand away while denying him. Then someone appeared and grabbed the student by the hand. The young man in question asked him not to touch her, but the student released his hand and asked what his problem was and who he was, adding that it was none of his business. However, he asked the young man to leave and stop ruining things, also mentioning that he would give her when he was done. At that moment, the young man hit the student, thus starting a fight between them. Other students, upon seeing this, informed the teachers. One of the bullies group warned him to stop, as he believed someone had gone to get the instructor. But before leaving, he shouted at the young man that he would not leave things like that he would beat him again. As the group withdrew, one of them said they would be punished again if they kept acting that way. In the end, the young man came out with few injuries, but after cleaning himself up, he looked at the girl from before, who was trembling. He approached her and asked if she was okay. As a way to reassure her, he tried to touch her shoulder, but before reaching her, the girl screamed not to touch her, leaving the young man paralyzed. Then she said that they were all the same, that they disgusted her. Leaving the place, the young man reflected that he already knew it, that she was still the same, that she still hated him as before. He remembered when she was a child and always rejected him, so he admitted that she was right, that someone like him was simply disgusting. Back in the present, he lit his lighter to smoke a cigarette. However, on his first attempt to smoke, he choked, beginning to cough intensely. He reflected that it burned like never before and wondered if he wasn't supposed to avoid breathing through his mouth. He complained that his throat hurt and that he didn't like that sensation at all. Then he heard someone laughing at the situation. Looking to the side, he saw a woman who immediately looked at him and apologized for laughing. The young man looked at her and wondered how long she had been there. Immediately, he thought if perhaps she was laughing at him, to which the woman replied that she wasn't laughing at him. But that only made the young man 100% sure that she was. He also wondered how she knew what he was thinking and if she could read his mind. The woman stared at him and, after observing him a bit more, asked if he was in a bad mood. The young man replied that he wasn't, but the woman stated that he didn't look like it, assuring that he was. Then she asked what was wrong with him and if he was okay or needed help. The young man remained silent, wondering what was wrong with that person and why she suddenly spoke to him. He also thought that she was so pretty, she didn't even seem real. He questioned what she was after, then said it wasn't necessary to help him and thanked her for the offer. But still, he felt the woman's gaze on his back. She looked at the cigarette he had in his hands and, in a quick motion, took it away from him. She said that if he didn't put it out soon, he would burn his fingers. She put out the cigarette and received thanks from the young man. However, the woman asked what he would think of using her as a hollow tree so that he could express his feelings. She added that she thought it was easier to open up when it was to a complete stranger. She explained that he didn't have to worry about what the other person might think, nor fear that they would tell someone, that he could express himself freely without holding back. She added that if it were her, she would like someone like that when she was in a bad mood. She asked the young man again what he thought, and if he wanted to try venting to her. The woman smiled, and the young man thought that was suspicious, wondering who would bother so much to care about a stranger's feelings. So he took his things and replied that he had already said he had nothing to say, and that if she didn't want anything else, he would leave now. He slowly walked away from the woman. He reflected that, although he didn't mean it, he had already decided he didn't need to talk to anyone, since telling his problems wouldn't change anything. In his opinion, it would only be a reminder of how pathetic he was. Besides, he had always known it. Talking about it never helped. He remembered when he ran into a woman who asked what he was doing there. The young man replied that he wanted to quit school. But the woman questioned what nonsense he was inventing now, calling him Jiang Fan Yu. She also wanted to know what that bruised face meant and what had happened this time at school, questioning if he couldn't just focus on his studies instead of giving her trouble. Fan Yu replied that if she let him quit school, he wouldn't bother her anymore and would leave that place. The woman, upon hearing that, asked where he would go, since he had nowhere to go. She told him not to approach her just to say stupid things. While taking out another cigarette, the young man asked her not to smoke, snatching the pack from her hands. And before the woman could say anything, he called her mother. But the woman ordered him not to call her that in public, questioning how many times she had told him. Finally, she demanded that he return home immediately, stating that she didn't have time for that now. She asked if he had come all the way just to say such nonsense, and if he didn't think she had more important things to do. Upon hearing that, Fan Yu exploded and questioned if she had ever cared about him. He stated that he always knew why she didn't want to go to school, but she never paid attention to him. He said that the only way to talk to her was to go to where she was to see her. But even so, he questioned what was the point, since no matter what he said, she would never listen to him. He demanded why, and if he wasn't her son. Upon hearing that, the woman shouted that it was enough, that she didn't care what he did, that she didn't care about anything. She asked him to simply not bother her. Fan Yu reflected that maybe there were people in the world who were simply born to be hated. He remembered that when he was a child, he heard others talk about him, saying that his mother had seduced another man, and that this one ended up abandoning his family. In addition, some claimed that his mother had told them not to play with him, because that way he would become someone bad, someone problematic. Fan Yu thought that what he most wanted was to escape from all that, but for someone like him it might be the same anywhere, since he considered himself detestable by nature. Just then it began to rain. He looked up at the sky and couldn't believe it, stating that he really wasn't lucky. Then he remembered the woman from before, when she had said that if it were her, she would like to have someone to support her when she was struggling. So he thought to himself that he should only care about himself. However, while the woman was looking at the river, someone sheltered her from the rain. It was Fan Yu who was doing it.